Hello everybody, Noah the Dota Coach here, and I'm coming at you with my first ever gameplay analysis. So this episode I'm going to be reviewing Darth playing Viper. He said he felt like he had a pretty good laning phase, but he felt like he didn't have that much of an impact later on. So I'm going to be taking a look at that. So I'll go ahead and get started. So as for starting items, I think your starting items are fine, except I probably wouldn't go with a Tango. Since you got pulled 2 Tangos, I would probably get a Salve right here instead. That way if you get bursted down in the laning phase, you can quickly heal up with your Salve, and these 2 Tangos should give you enough sustain for a little while. Also, I'm going to go ahead and point out, I don't know why he's sitting at his tier 1 tower right here. You should definitely be sitting at your tier 3 waiting to get creep blocks. Okay, now this is something that a lot of lower tier players do, and people do this all the way up to 4K. So this is a very bad habit to get into, and I'm going to tell you why. So when you walk up to the enemy team's low ground right here, and you're not smoked, they can see you out of the vision of their tower. They can see that they immediately see that you placed this ward right here before the game even started. So in a higher tier MMR game, this would immediately get dewarded the second that the laning phase starts. So in lower tier games, I would probably expect you to get away with this without this getting dewarded, but this is a very bad habit to get into, so I would just try not to do this. Instead, if you want to give your support the ward and let him smoke, or place it while he's ganking, if you can place this while you're diving the enemy mid, or if a support places it while they're going for a gank, it'll rarely go unnoticed. But if your support's not going to place it and you have to place it, just place it on your own high ground, like right about here I would say, because really all you want vision of is this area right here where the enemy mid's going to be standing. That way you can aggro the creeps and bring them back to you. And now you're not going to be in time to get your block, so this is a really bad habit to get into. So I'm going to go ahead and say that probably 90% of the mid lane is nothing but creep aggro. So by this attack right here on the sniper, I can tell that you really don't understand creep aggro. If you know what orb walking is, on heroes like Drow and Viper, when they have these attack modifier spells, they don't actually draw aggro on the enemy creeps. But what you want to do right here is you actually want to draw aggro onto these creeps so that it will bring the enemy creeps onto your ranged creep. That way you can get the deny on your ranged creep and deny levels from the enemy mid. This is 90% of the mid lane, and if you have a very good understanding of creep aggro, you don't have to be the highest skilled player, you don't have to be the best skilled player at your hero, for example. If you understand creep aggro, you can easily get farm and mid against just about anybody, just by having a good understanding of creep aggro. So I would probably watch some videos. There's plenty of videos on YouTube by BSJ, for example, or other higher tier players of creep aggro, so I'm not going to get too in detail to that, but I would definitely advise you to go take a look at some of those videos. But as for the rest of this, I'm going to try not to focus on mechanical mistakes, because mechanical mistakes are just going to get better as you play the game. However, conceptual mistakes are mistakes that you don't know are happening, so you couldn't ever fix them. And these could go years without ever being able to be fixed because you don't know that they're happening. So if I see any major conceptual mistakes, I'm going to try and point them out for you. So my theory when it comes to Viper is that Viper is a hero that obviously has a very strong lane, but the hero doesn't take objectives and he doesn't team fight, and he's not the best at pickoffs because he's really slow and immobile. So you have to rely on having this very strong laning phase on Viper to really create a strong impact in the game. And so this is what a lot of players fail to do. A lot of players have a really good laning phase on Viper, but they really don't understand how to have a huge impact on the rest of the game. But I'll get to that in a little bit. So your laning phase is pretty decent. You're bodying up on this sniper. The sniper is level 2 and you're level 5. Is that right? Is that a glitch? No, it's not, apparently. Okay. Very good so far. If he's level 2 and you're level 5, you're clearly doing something right. And see, this right here is where I would like to mention that you grabbed a salve. You use your 2 tangos in lane, which is fine. That's what you're supposed to use them for. But in situations like this where you're just low and you need to get back into the fight real quick, this is why I suggested getting a salve at the beginning. I think your skill build is correct, and I think your item build so far is correct. And I also like how you're getting as much damage in on this tower as you possibly can. When you're owning a mid lane, you always want to try and get as much tower damage as you possibly can. Because if you're dominating the mid lane, but you're not actually getting any objectives out of it, you're really not winning that hard. Also, I want to go ahead and point out, I'm very impressed that you grabbed the phase boots. I know a lot of Viper players buy treads, and in my experience, I think phase boots better fits this hero. So there are some heroes in Dota that you can really swap between going treads and phase boots, and a lot of people really don't know how to decide whether you get treads or phase boots. And a good example of this would be a hero like Juggernaut, for example. So Juggernauts can go treads or phase boots depending on how they want to play the game. So if you ever want to decide if you have to get treads or phase boots, ask yourself this question: how am I going to play the game? Am I going to be passively farming, or am I going to be running at the enemies? If you're playing Juggernaut and your plan is to just spin and run at the enemies, go for phase boots. But if you're playing Juggernaut and your plan is to get Battle Fury and just hit creeps all game until you're really strong, you're better off going the power treads. But Viper is a hero that literally just likes to run at the enemy team, so I think it's good that you got phase boots. So the sniper is feeling very sorry. You're definitely dominating this mid lane. I like how you're pushing it in. I like how you're getting as much tower damage as you possibly can. Even forcing a little bit of tier 2 damage at 8 minutes is really something really good to do. So coming out of laning phase, you're pretty far ahead. Your team's winning all their lanes and things are looking pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and point this out. I think this is your biggest mistake that you made this game. You're playing very well. You're definitely owning your lanes. So remember how I said that Viper is a hero that definitely wins his lane very strong, but he struggles to take objectives or team fight or really have any other impact in the game outside of his lane. So what a lot of Viper players do, especially in the pro scene, it's very common for Viper players to pick up a Helm of the Dominator. Now Helm of the Dominator fills in this gap that Viper lacks. So as a Viper, you will dominate your lane, but you're going to fail to struggle to do much anything else after that, which is fine. That's just Viper in general. So Helm of the Dominator allows you to group up with your team and force objectives. This is something I talked about in one of my previous videos about how strong Helm of the Dominator is and how good it is to actually take objectives and group up with your team. When your team is this far ahead, when you've pretty much won all your lanes, but as you can see with your draft, you have a draft that doesn't really like to hit towers. So the key to this whole problem would be getting a Helm of the Dominator. Getting the Helm of the Dominator will give your team an aura 7 HP regen and an aura 20 attack speed. So if you get this Helm of the Dominator and you're already this far ahead, and then you group up with your team and start taking objectives and start hitting towers, then the enemy team is forced to fight into you when they're weaker than you. Because if you're hitting their towers, if you're grouped up and you're hitting their towers, the enemy team is forced to react to you. I made a whole video on this. You should probably watch it after this. But the enemy team is forced to react to you. If you're hitting their towers, if you're grouped up and you're going to take their towers, they have to do something about it. And the thing is, if they're behind like they are now and they're forced to fight into you when you're stronger, they're going to lose those fights and you're just going to start snowballing out of control and start taking objectives. And I went into detail about some of the heroes that you can dominate on Helm of the Dominator to help push your advantage. So I would definitely give that video a look. So as you can see, you're taking team fights at this point in the game. And even though you're so far ahead, you're really not getting anything done. But I think if you had a Helm of the Dominator and you had all this regen and stats, I think the stats on the Helm of the Dominator would probably benefit you more than this Dragonlance anyways. And it would definitely benefit the rest of your team as well. Dota is a team game, and even though people in low tier MMR solo games, they don't like to play as a team, you have to really think about that in the grand scheme of the game. So I think if you had a Helm of the Dominator and you could get your team to group up and take this bottom tower down here, you could really start getting a lot more objective. Because even if you're killing the enemy team over and over and over, but you're not actually getting any objectives, which is towers or Roshan basically, then you're really not getting anything out of it, and you're really not even using your advantage that you worked up. So even though you're killing the sniper over and over and over, like, what are you getting out of this? Like, yeah, you're killing the sniper, you're getting 260 gold, but you're not actually getting any objectives. Had you have been grouped up with your team and maybe forced this tier 1 tower bottom, that would have been way more beneficial to you than getting a free kill on a sniper in the jungle. And it's kind of weird getting used to that in Dota, because a lot of people just want to go for kills and stuff, but you really have to think about objectives. If you're far ahead and you're not getting objectives, then you're not far ahead. So you're starting to get a little bit over aggressive. And when the enemy team has a Spirit Breaker, if he sees you showing in the lane at anywhere on the map, he's going to charge you and his whole team's going to show up and he's going to kill you. And as a hero on Viper, a hero that has absolutely no escape and is super slow, if you're going to get charged at by Spirit Breaker, you're pretty much a guaranteed kill. But like I said, like, even 10 minutes later, this tower is probably going to stay here just because your team is not taking any objectives. They worked up a huge lead in the laning phase, but this is probably the biggest difference between lower tier players and higher tier players. Higher tier players, when they have a huge advantage coming out of the laning phase, they will pressure that advantage and they will get objectives out of that advantage. Lower tier players, they'll work up a good little lead, but then they'll just start doing their own thing, maybe hitting some jungle creeps or something like that, and they won't actually use their advantage that they worked up so hard to actually get anything out of it. But you're very far ahead. Like, you own your laning phase. And so now you're starting to group up and take objectives. This is good. This is what I want to see more of. I want to see more of this, and I want to see it more a little bit earlier. So Helm of the Dom really enables your team to do this, because this is how you win the game. When you're ahead, you group up and you take towers. When you're behind, you split up and you start farming. That's pretty much how Dota has to go. So if you work up a huge lead and you don't actually force these towers, the enemy team is going to have plenty of time, because they don't actually have to defend. So they have plenty of time to work up their farm, and they don't have to defend their towers, so you're not actually getting anything out of your lead. So I could probably imagine in the next 5 to 10 minutes, your lead's probably going to go away. If you're not really taking all these objectives, your lead's going to start to dwindle. So we're 20 minutes in, and this bottom tower tier 1 that you could have gotten 10 minutes ago or something like that is still sticking out like a sore thumb. Tier 1 towers are easy objectives to give you team gold, which can really propel your team to victory. And see, here's the thing though, your Mirana actually has the right idea here. Like, she knows this tower needs to go, so she's forced to do it by herself. Had you have gone Helm of the Dominator and sort of grouped up with your team earlier and taken this tower, this wouldn't ever happen actually. So believe it or not, by you actually making the right decisions, you actually force your team to play better. Also, even though you're killing the sniper over and over and over in the jungle, again, what are you getting out of it? You can't actually get anything out of these kills, and they're probably going to punish you, as they probably should. This is something that you're going to have to get used to, is not going for these free kills where there's no objectives to get anything out of it. Because believe it or not, by you making the right decisions to group up and take these towers, your team wouldn't be forced to do it by themselves, which just ends up in getting them killed. And I think that's going to be the main theme of this game. Like I said, your lead's going to slowly start to dwindle because you're not actually grouping up and taking these towers when you're ahead. And so the enemy team just has plenty of time to farm up and give themselves a pretty good little comeback here. And I've played probably hundreds, maybe even 1,000 games of Dota where this exact thing has happened. And it's probably taken me 4.5 years to learn this. And there are still 5K players that lose this way by not forcing their advantage when they're ahead. So this is definitely not something that I think you should feel bad about. I think you're playing very well for your MMR. But I think from here on, this game is over. I think you had your chance to win when you were so far ahead, but you didn't take advantage of it. So the enemy team's just going to punish you. And like I said, this has probably happened to me 1,000 times in my lifetime of Dota. So 100% from this point on, the game is over. You had your chance to win at about 15 to 20 minutes. And you kind of split up with your team, and your team just sort of got picked off. Especially when you're against a Spirit Breaker, and a Spirit Breaker sees one of your teammates alone in a lane trying to hit a tower. He's 100% going to go for that kill, and they're going to get it every single time. But had you have grouped up with your team, and if Spirit Breaker just jumps into the rest of your team, he's going to die immediately. So like I said, I think the main theme from this game is just taking your advantage and grouping up with your team and taking objectives. I don't think much else can be said after that. I think if you can learn from that and start applying that to the rest of your games, I think you'll start doing exceptionally well, because this is something that took me years to learn. So hopefully you can learn from it pretty quick. And I think you'll start to win a lot more games, because I don't think you're under mechanically skilled for your MMR. I think you're probably ahead on your mechanical skill. It's just sort of this conceptual knowledge and understanding of the game that sets high tier players and low tier players apart. So yeah, thanks Darth for letting me review your game. It was really fun. Hopefully you learned something from it. And if you think there's something that I didn't point out or that you would like me to point out next time, this is my first time ever doing this. So feel free to leave all the feedback you would like. Anyways guys, I'm Noah the Dota Coach, and I'll catch you in the next one.